Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and our long-running series, the Unported Playlist, where I take a look at some of my favorite unported arcade games of all time. And today we have Steel Gunner 2 from Namco. It's running on the Namco System 2 board and is obviously the sequel to the original Steel Gunners, a game that I talked about previously on the channel. If you know anything about me, I love two things, arcade games and light gun games, which means this game is going to be right up my alley. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But Steel Gunner is just a bigger, longer version of the original game. And because I love the original so much, obviously I'm going to love this. Now this isn't the light gun genre, but it's not using traditional light gun hardware. This is using a cabinet mounted gun that has two analog potentiometers for the X and Y coordinates. So this is something that you can play at home on a controller and get basically the exact same experience, because anytime you see a gun mounted to a cabinet, that is not using the raster pattern from the monitor. But not getting too technical here, we want to talk about the game. I just love how the System 2 deals with the sprite scaling. The pseudo 3D effect in this game is awesome, and I feel like it does in some ways rival the best of what Sega was doing at the same time. And there's so many new enemy varieties in this game and so many new mechanics. If you like the original game, you're going to 100% love this. Now I can't really decide which game is better, the first or the second. I think they're pretty much equally as good, and it's such an unfortunate thing that these were never ported home. Namco could have easily put these on the Wii as a collection for $10 using the Wiimote as the cursor, and I think a lot of people would have had an absolute ton of fun. You will see I took my first continue there, and I will say this game is hard. There are projectiles coming at you from every side of the screen at once, so screen space management is going to be paramount. This is honestly a game that feels like it was designed exclusively for a two-player experience, and playing as a solo player you're going to be at a disadvantage. The nice thing is, because it's not a real cabinet, we're not putting real quarters in, and it doesn't cost us any more to lose a few more times to see the ending. But I will say this is an arcade game where the ending depends on your performance, and you can get the bad ending in the last 10 seconds, and that usually drives me a little bit nuts. But I love the boss fights as well. You get this giant mechanical, almost crab-looking monster running across the screen, and you do get a decent amount of story as well. We're at the police lab headquarters, and we're going to be learning something about the story, but you'll see suddenly an enemy just explodes straight through the floor and you've fallen after them. The little intercut sequences between levels give you just enough of a pause to take a breath and to get a little bit more story in. But this game is just frantic action from start to finish. Once the level starts, it barely ever gives you a break. It's never going to let up. But for the 20 some odd minutes you're playing it, that is a good thing. And the other good thing is this reminds me of Point Blank, what I consider to be Namco's best light gun series of all time, graphically and gameplay wise. And if you're compared to that banger of a series, you know you're doing a good job. And if you've never played Point Blank, do me the favor and play it. It's my favorite light gun series that doesn't involve horror elements. It is just a 10 out of 10 in my book. But I love all the sprite work in this game as well. All these kind of like biomechanical enemies you're facing, and then they quote-unquote blow up real good with chunks of their body just flying across the screen. It's not very violent whatsoever, but it does give you a good effect. And you will see here that we're encountering the big boss of the game. The one thing that I do wish Steel Gunner did a little bit more is give you more boss encounters. You don't get a boss at the end of every stage. Sometimes you just move on to the next level, but something like this here with the night vision mode activated, it just gives you something different to do for like 5 to 10 seconds. And that's the fun part about this game. It gets bigger, the set pieces get more impressive the further you go into the game. It makes you want to see the ending because the game's always trying to show you something new and more exciting than you faced in the previous level. And I will say that this game has an absolute banger soundtrack as well. So once we get into the helicopter here and restore our weapons, I'll give you a listen for like 45 seconds. But you'll see here sometimes the levels just end in nothing. That's slightly disappointing. Not disappointing, the music. Go ahead and listen and enjoy. It's a great soundtrack, and Namco always had good soundtracks, but the one issue I take with Steel Gunner 2 is the bullet sound effects can sometimes drown out a little bit of the music, and that's not uncommon with arcade games. Sometimes the audio balancing just isn't great, but I do wish that you could hear the music a little bit better because what is there is awesome. Like I mentioned earlier, the further you get into the game, the bigger the set pieces get, and now we're on to this weapons development island, and you can basically blow up absolutely everything in the background. All of those tanks you can just destroy. Get a few extra points for it, but it's not essential. But I love how much is going on screen at once, and this game never once has a hint of slowdown. You will see that there are some civilians now and again, and if you don't shoot them and let them escape off screen, you're going to get a +1 life up. But honestly, everything is so frantic, trying to make sure you don't hit them can be quite difficult. And you will see here that I've saved up some missiles. You try to get them to the boss because it's going to make the boss a lot easier, but if you are low on health and you've got missiles stored up, you may as well just unload them all to try to get a little bit further because you collect more during gameplay, but when you die you're going to reset down to, I believe, 4. But you'll just see here, one missile is going to clear an entire screen out, and I absolutely love that aspect. The one thing I'm going to strike this game for, though, is it does the one thing in arcade gaming I absolutely cannot stand, and that is the low health siren warning. It's just a repeating tone to tell you you're almost dead, but it becomes incredibly annoying. It seemed like it was a popular thing to do in the late 80s or early 90s. You will see there sometimes a door will open up and you're going to take basically automatic damage, and that is just a way for the game to get a few more quarters off of you. So every once in a while it can feel cheap. But I love this elevator sequence here as well. You can destroy the walkways that your opponents are running on as opposed to shooting them directly, so you can take out more enemies at once. It's a small feature, but it's something that you need to learn what the game expects of you. If you know what you can destroy to take out a lot of enemies at once, it's going to be easier for you to maintain that life. But again, there you'll see sometimes doors just open and things are already there. You can kind of cheese it if you know what's happening and be unloading that gun as the door opens up, but when there's 5 different things to shoot on screen immediately and you're only playing as one player, it can be relatively difficult. This is definitely a game you can 100% tell was designed for the difficulty of 2 players playing at once, and it really doesn't balance itself down well at all for that 1 player experience. But I love these monsters that come out of these tubes, and I love the fact that you can shoot a grenade back at your opponents. It doesn't always work. Sometimes by the time you shoot the grenade everyone's already dead, but it's a nice feature. And again, the sprite scaling and pseudo 3D effects are absolutely amazing for the era. This does look like you're falling into something. Sure, you just get brown blobs on the edges of the screen, but the scaling does look like it's smooth, and it does give you the impression of that pseudo 3D, which I absolutely love. Because there was just a time and place in gaming where 3D graphics didn't exist, but you could be fooled into that 3D environment with that sprite scaling. Now you will notice that sometimes they do reuse some assets, so the same tanks from a previous area are now in the game as well, and we're back over water. But I'm going to give you one more taste of the soundtrack because I absolutely love it. So now that that island has been nuked, we can listen to some music. Enjoy! I just love the soundtrack to this game, and it's so unfortunate these games never got ported. This would be perfect for any modern $10 compilation. You could use the gyroscopes in any modern controller. You could use the Switch controller as a pointer. I don't know why Namco never brought these home. I could understand upon release there was no home hardware that was capable enough to do this, but now I feel like for $10 people would really want to play these. But I'm curious to know, have you played this game before? Leave me a comment down below if you played Steel Gunner 2 or the original game, because it's one that I don't hear mentioned very often whatsoever, and that to me is a bummer because I think these are just absolutely outstanding. If you find a cabinet in North America, definitely play it. It's not getting any less rare because it wasn't a huge hit upon release. Maybe there's a bunch of cabs in Japan, but I'm in Chicago, so I can only go with what I know here. If you do know of a location of a cabinet, leave me a comment down below as well, because I always love hearing where these things may still exist. It excites me to know that somebody knows there's a cabinet out there somewhere. But if you're looking for a really fun light gun game to play for like 20 minutes, definitely give Steel Gunner 2 a chance. It emulates perfectly on MAME, and arcade PCBs actually aren't that expensive for the game, and I'm definitely going to be adding this to my collection at some point in time. But short of that, Steel Gunner 2, absolutely outstanding game from Namco. I'll be back next Monday with more Imported. I'll have videos through the week as well, but I'm going to finish shooting up these bad guys here, and I'm going to see you guys later. Bye-bye.